master's candidate from the University of Kent in Canterbury, England, and I am going to present the preliminary results from my master's dissertation research, which is still currently underway, looking at what motivates people to gain employment within the ornamental horticulture industry, specifically public horticulture. So just a little bit of background. I would never presume that I need to laud the benefits of the horticulture industry to a group of people such as yourselves, but I will provide just a little bit of background to the industry specific to the United Kingdom, the aims of my research, where I am now and what I've done and how I'll continue on in the research, and some preliminary data. As you can probably tell, I'm not British, so when I began the timetable for this project, I was unaware of the many-headed hydra that is the Chelsea Flower Show, which is run by the RHS. So initially I had planned on being about halfway through with my fieldwork by now. Unfortunately, I've only been able to visit one of the 5 fieldwork locations. So all of the data I present to you today will be from my visit to RHS Rosemore. So in 2018, a report, The Economic Impact of the Ornamental Horticulture and Landscape Industry in the UK, was published. And this report was funded by Oxford Economics and the Horticulture Roundtable Group. And from this, they realized, or they discovered or published, that the ornamental horticulture industry in its entirety within the UK is very economically impactful. Specifically, just from direct employment, the ornamental horticulture industry is responsible for over 370,000 jobs in the United Kingdom alone. If you take into account all of the indirect and implied jobs supported by this industry, this number goes up significantly to over almost 600,000 jobs, which equates to about 1.6% of total employment in the United Kingdom, and works out to about 1 in every 62 jobs. So this is quite impressive. But unfortunately, the industry in the United Kingdom is facing a lot of the similar challenges that the horticulture industry in the United States is facing. Namely, it has kind of a reputation problem. It needs a little bit of a facelift. So in 2006, a Cromer International case study report found that there is a huge burgeoning employment gap that's a serious threat to the industry. In 2006, 40% of current employees within ornamental horticulture were only 20 years away from retiring, whereas only 5% were under the age of 26. And this is a current serious problem within the industry in the United States as well. And there has been a lot of information research as to why people aren't going into the industry. The RHS found in a 2013 Horticulture Matters report, 200 horticultural businesses surveyed, 72% were unable to fill the skilled employee vacancy positions that they had, and 1,000 people were surveyed. 70% of those under 18 found that or felt that horticulture was a career only to be pursued if you failed academically and you weren't, and it was unskilled, which I think if anybody is a gardener or has entered or worked in the horticulture industry at all knows is vastly untrue. But this is the bad news. The good news is that the industry is not sitting idle, and there has been a lot of work done by both Longwood Gardens and the American Society of Horticultural Science, the RHS, to really turn this around, and it is working. But I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in are the hundreds of thousands of people just in the United Kingdom alone who, despite the hard-working conditions, the low comparative pay, working in all outdoor environments, have decided to go into this industry. It's those people that I am interested in working with. So this graphic is just a small example of how wide the ornamental horticulture industry is. And for my own sanity and to come out of this dissertation with even the smallest amount of validity, I've decided to focus my research specifically on individuals who have decided to go into employment in the public garden or amenity horticulture sector of the industry, specifically at the 5 RHS gardens. So what I'm looking for are what motivates people to gain employment within the industry, and if there are any consensus between demographics, specifically time in the industry and the geographic location within the country. There are currently 4 RHS gardens opening into the public, and RHS Bridgewater will be open to the public in 2020. When I proposed this project to the RHS, they were specifically interested if there was a geographic difference in what motivated people to enter the industry, and they were very enthusiastic about this project. As I mentioned, I've only been able to visit RHS Rosemore, which is in the southwest of the country in Devon. And primarily I was conducting semi-structured interviews with the current horticulture staff. I conducted 11 interviews, which was with over half of the full-time garden staff, and I was trying to establish a small life history of the individuals and their time in and around the garden. What I was hoping to avoid was just getting a lot of answers like, oh, because I like plants. We all know that. You wouldn't go into an industry as demanding as horticulture if you didn't have some sort of fundamental base interest in plants. And what I found was, this is just a little bit more information about how I divided based on career stages. So your early career, middle career, and late career ages. So of the 11 interviews, most of them were between 18 minutes and 120 minutes. Most of them were conducted in a cafe at the garden or in the gardens. One of them was done at the local pub, so I'm sure you can figure out which one of those interviews was the pub interview. It was the 2-hour one. And from the interviews, I had 4 who were early career, 3 middle career, and 4 late career. When I asked them first to just give me a list of all the reasons why they felt people in general were motivated to enter the industry, I had quite a variety of responses. And what was heartening to me is that a lot of these responses were also found in a 2016 study by Hort Technology, which asked current horticulture employees within the United States the reasons why they would suggest people to enter the industry, the highlights of the industry that they would share to prospective employees. So hopefully that means I'm doing something right as I continue on the research. But one of the things that I found most interesting was, if you'll see up there, one person said that a motivation they knew of was the loss of a loved one. This gentleman was speaking of a friend of his who lost his wife and wanted a dramatic life change to sort of recover from that. But when I started interviewing the early career individuals, 2 of the 4 of them also said that the death of a loved one was a primary driver for why they decided to enter the horticulture industry, but neither of them mentioned it when I asked for a list of general motivations that people use. And being new to research, I didn't even know that, marketing, handing out pamphlets for the RHS apprentice program to bereaved family members is pretty ethically questionable. But the RHS does have a program for legacy campaigns allowing people to donate and in their will to the RHS. And as part of this, they have days where prospective legacy donors will come and tour the garden. And this is a project that a lot of botanical gardens and zoos and institutions have. So what this tells me as I continue on my research, and I'm excited to see if I find more of, is that while this might not be something that the RHS can use directly to target employment and capacity building initiatives, it is potentially a service that they can offer to their members and the surviving family members of legacy donors that rather than, or in addition to offering a day at the garden to legacy donors, offer a day at the garden to the surviving family. Because these 2 individuals who I spoke to said that being in a garden, working in a garden, helped them connect to their loved one and helped them grieve and move on and heal. The middle career individuals, interestingly, 2 of the 3 of them said that they began interest in horticulture after they moved house. They prior did not have access to a personal garden, and when they started gardening to make their home feel like home, they realized that it was something that they were interested in and wanted to continue moving forward with. And the quality of life and enjoying their job at the end of the day was really important to this specific group of individuals. And the most interesting thing of the late career individuals that I interviewed was 3 of the 4 of them were career changers. So they had naturally retired from previous industries and then went on into ornamental horticulture. So looking at them a little bit more closely, what they said that attracted them primarily to public horticulture was the team dynamic. One of the career changers had moved from soliciting, he was a property lawyer. 2 of them had retired from the military, and one of them was in agricultural business, and he felt that he had reached the ceiling as far as he could go in this industry, and he decided, it was time for a switch. 4 out of the 5 of these individuals said that one of the primary reasons why they decided to choose horticulture as their second career was because they had been for a period of time volunteering in a garden, and it was something that they really loved to do. They loved the mental health and the physical health benefits that they felt from working in a garden, and they loved the academic quality that they felt there was always something to learn and always a space to advance in their career if they wanted it. And one of the quotes that I loved the most from this project when they were speaking of job employment is that my partner does marketing. He doesn't come home from a day and say, oh, I fancy to do a bit of marketing. No, I'm going to go garden. And I thought that was quite funny and something that people who work in the industry can relate to. And one of the other things that I'm really excited to continue looking for, when I asked individuals if they had a prior link to the industry, if any of their family or friends worked in the industry, 2 people said yes, and they both were from farms in Devon, dairy farms in Devon. And when I asked if their parents gardened when they were growing up, they said no, that there wasn't really time. But every other person I interviewed, when I asked, did you have a contact with the industry? No, not professionally, but my mother, my father, my granddad, my grandmother, my aunt were very keen gardeners. And when I would inquire a little bit further about that, asking if these individuals, took the time to teach them about horticulture, they often said no, but they did specify, I remember tottering around behind them, I remember picking the allium flowers, I had my own trowel, I had a little pond. When my grandfather planted potatoes, he'd give me one and I'd put one in the ground. So there was not a specific sort of passing of knowledge, but as Jill's talked earlier with the sort of attachment to place, which I will be definitely reading more information about as I continue this, it seems to have a huge influence on individuals that they might not have said was the primary driver of why they entered the industry, but there is something there, or at least I hope. So going forward, I have 4 more gardens to visit. One of the things I hope to do, assuming that I have time in my project, is once I have these motivations, if you will, across demographics, I recognize that I'm asking about causation events that happened in some cases decades ago. So once I have these things distilled down, I have permission from the RHS to distribute a questionnaire to the current students in the RHS training levels to see then if these motivations that I identify from interviews with current employees are then similar and how the level of agreement that current students hoping to go into the industry still have, and assess the validity of anything that comes out of this research. I would like to thank the SEB for the travel award that enabled me to come speak today, and the University of Kent and the Royal Horticultural Society for partial funding of this project. Does anybody have any questions?
Time for a question.
Amazing.
Did you get any surprises? I mean, aside from the loss of a loved one?